And if I'm not tragically mistaken, we are back on the Zero Hour. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and with us is my good friend Ernie Powell. Ernie is a veteran organizer and political activist who began his career with Cesar Chavez in the Farm Workers Union, and most recently he was the grassroots national director at, I always struggle with this name and this acronym, National Committee to Protect Social Security and Medicare. Before that, he managed policy issues on behalf of AARP and its more than 3 million California members, and was the state senior advocacy manager. Before that, he was associate state director for California. So, Ernie, I guess you could say you've been fighting for the old since we were young. And thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, and it's to preserve, but they also want to protect, but it's to preserve in the formal title for the National Committee.
I told you I have problems with this. Maybe it should be
I forget it once in a while myself, so that's okay. That's okay.
Well, thanks for joining us. And you know, I said it, you know, just somewhat flippantly that that, you know, you've been fighting on behalf of the old since we were young, but really, and one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is reframing that entire conversation, which is something you've been working on, to say it's really not about the old versus the young, is it?
Yeah. No, it's not. You know, when you think of these programs, these great programs that Social Security, which started in the depths of the Great Depression in 1935, and then LBJ passing Medicare and Medicaid in the 60s. A better way to think of them, and I think a more truthful way to think of them, is as family protection programs. Because what they do is they through the years their reach has expanded so that children can now receive Social Security benefits as surviving members of the family when the major wage earner has a disability accident or an accident that causes him or her to be disabled and or is tragically deceased. So disabled workers can collect Social Security and also can go on Medicare at any age if they have a workplace accident or somehow become disabled. So the framing of it is very important, and to think of these only as senior programs is to not understand the full depth of their value to all of us and their value to American families as we all struggle in these economic times.
Well, I think that's really well put. Now, I would add to that the fact that, you know, God willing, if we're lucky, each of us, no matter what our age, will eventually become a senior person, and
Right.
we will certainly want these programs to be well and healthy. I'm particularly disillusioned by the cynical marketing of Social Security and Medicare cuts to millennials, as if they're not smart enough to understand that they're going to be 65 someday too.
Well, it's a tactic that has that the conservative movement or the right-wing privatization movement has honed down, and what they do, and I learned a lot of this from the polling that was done when I worked at ARP in the mid-'90s. We thought that because we knew we'd be facing the privatization sometime soon, and so ARP did some very extensive polling and focus groups, and what we learned was that everybody supported Social Security, but the key issue that the privatizers were going to use was the whole question of whether or not it's going to be there for me either in the near future or the long away future. And so no one has the gall or in some ways they don't campaign saying, I don't like these programs, I think these programs are bad ideas, which is what they really believe. What they do is they try to build out around the solvency of both Social Security and Medicare. So they make the argument that because the government is so inefficient, it's so wasteful, that these programs are going broke. And so the argument that we developed, and of course that's not true. I mean, Social Security is solvent all the way to 2033, and even then it can pay 75% of its promised benefits with just a 1% growth rate in the economy. So you notch up the growth rate in the economy a little bit, and that extends the solvency. And that's
Right, and nobody seems to talk about why the economy would need its growth rate notched up a little bit, which has more to do about Wall Street malfeasance than it
hmm
does about anything else. And so we know that these programs are fundamentally robust. We want to organize to protect them. You're a veteran organizer. It's an intergenerational problem. These programs help. The assault on them is an intergenerational problem. These programs help families and young people, including, cynically
hmm
enough, Representative Paul Ryan when he was a young man. So how do
right.
we organize so that all the generations can fight for programs that serve all of the generations?
Well, we organize based on the truth. That's one. That's one point. And the other point is that I'm, through the years, I've seen hundreds of ARP members and then with the national committee go on to college campuses and go into workplaces where people were, to talk to employee groups or union groups. And once they hear that argument, and once they hear the truth about the solvency issue and about the future of Social Security, I've seen some great coalitions built over the years that work side by side with seniors intergenerationally. So here's the point. I guess my best answer is that to say the truth to as many people as possible, and then also to tap that self-interest, because any day one can have a workplace accident and become disabled. Any day one could lose a major wage earner in the family. So we built over the years in the big fight we had in 2005 over privatization during the Bush administration, the fight against the chain CPI, all the way through that. We have talked to young people. We've worked with them as spokespersons. Because we were able to say, number one, tap their self-interest, and also I think tap the care that they feel sort of intergenerationally. No one wants seniors to be driven into poverty, and so I found younger people and people still in the workplace to be very, very receptive, and a group that we've been able to build into coalitions in for example, the 5 swing states when we did a lot of work in 2012 during the election cycle. So it's possible and it's doable, and that's the way you win on this issue.
Well, it's encouraging to hear, and affirms my faith in humanity a little bit too, because we are compassionate people who care about one another and not just ourselves. Also, I found, as you have from time to time, I've met with elected officials, and you show them the charts and you give them the logic and you show them the data and all of that, but sometimes what really gets their attention is election issues, and I know you've been
hmm
thinking about that a lot and maybe considering some work in that area. Anything you want to say about that side of it?
Well, I'm with a small group of people across the country, and it's small because we're still in the development stage, to build a new organization called Senior Votes Count. And we just got started in the last few months, and we're developing policies and we're developing strategies. And our Senior Votes Count will be a senior organization dealing with these family protection issues that will at the electoral level. We will endorse candidates and we will oppose candidates, and we will raise funds. We just got approved as a PAC and as a C4. The adjunct organization with the Senior Votes Count PAC is going to be called Senior Votes Count Institute, where we'll do good intergenerational research. We'll do good research on issues that people talk about during the election cycle, looking for the right messaging, the good organizing tactics. That'll be part of the Institute's job as an ancillary organization, working next or side by side to the PAC. And we'll have our website up. We think within the next 30 days, and I'm very, very excited about this potential. Most of the senior groups in the country do a great job, but they work in a nonpartisan way, and they work from a perspective of education and mobilizing voters. But again, they do it in a nonpartisan way. We're going to go the next step. We're going to say, we're going to endorse you if you're good on the issues, if you support Social Security, if you oppose privatization, if you support Medicare, if you don't buy into all the lies about the so-called $700 billion cuts, but understand that Medicare is going to be there and it's going to be there in the future. So senior votes count is something I'm really excited about, and we look for that announcement, RJ. We would hope within the next 30 days.
Well, we'll be looking for it, and we'll be bringing you back when it comes on. But in the meantime, I also would point out that seniors who do vote in disproportionately large numbers, especially in off-year elections, as you know, have always cared about the generations that follow them. That's always showed up in the polling. So, listen, when we come back, I would love to talk to you more about your time with the farm workers and those days. I know a new movie came out about Cesar Chavez, and maybe get your thoughts on that and on what we
Okay.
can do to build a spirit of organization going forward. So if you can hang with us for another segment, we'd love to talk to you a little more.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Well, we sure appreciate that. I'm RJ Eskow. We're talking with Ernie Powell, veteran organizer. We'll be back talking about the early days of the farm workers. Thanks so much for listening. Stick around. It's going to be great. Again, I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is the Zero Hour.